Coach Robb podcast, answering questions and eliminating frustrations about health, wellness, and performance since 1987.
Welcome to another Meet the Guest podcast as part of the Coach Robb Podcast Network. You're about to meet Alec Rukosuev, who was one of America's top triathletes in the late 90s, early 2000s. And you're going to be blown away by his story. He spends the first 15, 20 minutes giving the framework literally of what it's like to have your food be available based on your rankings as an athlete. I'm not going to say much more than that because he does a much more eloquent job of setting the stage. And to me, it gives me goosebumps every time I hear the story. I'm going to leave that for the podcast itself, but for the sake of time, I didn't want to spend any because he was very tight on time. I wanted to give you a little bit of background on his accomplishments. As I mentioned, he was ranked number one here in America on 3 separate occasions. Now, remember, this is a gentleman who came from the Soviet Union, moved to the United States to become a professional athlete, and ended up achieving the number 1 ranking on 3 separate occasions here in the United States. When you look at literally his entire athletic career in the sport of triathlon, we have 3, sometimes 4, depending on where you start. We have 4 distances that we cover. We have sprint distance, we have Olympic distance, we have half Ironman and Ironman distances. Alec has literally dominated all 4 of those here. And I want you to kind of think about this from 10,000 foot view. Alec and his wife both came over here to the United States with a whopping $39 in their pocket. How many times have you heard somebody talk about, hey, when I got started in the United States, I literally didn't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out. And here he is, literally living proof of what it's like coming to a country. His English was very, very minimal. I remember the first time I met him in 1990, he literally couldn't converse. Like it's safe to say that he didn't speak English at all. I would pick him up at his house. He was staying with a dear friend of ours, Jeff Cutterback, and Dr. Kim Watson. I would pick him up at about 4:45, and I would drive to the pool, Katy Way, here in Winter Park, Florida. We literally couldn't converse. The only thing that we were able to do that we had in common was he enjoyed Depeche Mode. So I would put Depeche Mode into the CD player. Yes, I'm showing my age. And we would drive. Wouldn't say a word to each other. We'd just kind of hum along to Depeche Mode. I would take him to breakfast after our after our master swim in the morning. And then I would come back, drop him off at his house. I would go on to work, and he would move on to another, bike workout or a run workout. He talks a little bit about this in the episode. What I want you to keep in mind, though, is this is a gentleman who didn't know the language, didn't have any money, but became one of the most accomplished athletes in the United States. You can see on our thumbnail here, this is actually Alec on the cover of Triathlete magazine. When magazines were still in publication, Triathlete was the gospel of the sport of triathlon. And here's a gentleman that comes over from Russia, gets ranked number 1 in America, makes his sponsorship portfolio so big, and his results obviously accompanied that. He ended up on the cover of the number 1 magazine here in the United States. If you look at the cover very closely, you'll see the sponsors that he has. Very, very big sponsors. He's had Reebok and Nike. If you have a bike background, you remember when Kestrel was the number 1 bike in the endurance industry. He was one of the few athletes sponsored by Kestrel, Zip Wheels, Power Bar, when Power Bar was a huge sponsor to have in its day and time. The list goes on and on, but unfortunately, I'm going to have to read for you a little bit of his accolades, because remember what we talked about. In our sport, we have 4 distances: sprint, Olympic, half Ironman, and full Ironman. And I want you to think about this. In Russia, became the number 1 1,500 meter swimmer in 1991. Comes over to the United States, has a 10-year tenure. He spent 10 years as a professional athlete here. At the sprint distance, for those of you that are in the Southeast, you'll remember the exclusive sports marketing and the CFT, Central Florida Triathlon Sprint Series. Alec dominated both of those series as soon as he got here. If you follow the sport of triathlon, you know, Olympic distance, literally when you watch the Olympics, that distance of a 1.5K swim, a 40K bike ride, and a 10K run, that's roughly a mile swim, 25-mile bike, and a 6.2-mile run. One of the most significant races that we have here in the States is St. Anthony's. He's won that numerous times. He's been top 3 numerous times. He's been top 5 numerous times. We kind of called that Alec's race. He's won big races like Mrs. T's. He's won Olympic distance races all around the world as part of what we call the ITU World Cups, Pan American Games. The Olympic distance, he destroyed it. He owned it. He literally banged elbows with some of the best in the world around the world. As if that wasn't impressive enough, he moved over to the half Ironman distance. For those of you that are familiar with Panama City, that was a very big half Ironman that we always had over Mother's Day weekend. Alec has won that numerous times. As if that wasn't enough, Alec took on the Ironman distance. And if you follow Ironman, if you want to go back to YouTube and you want to watch, in particular, go back and look at 1993. That was his first year at Ironman Hawaii. He's first out of the water and ends up finishing 13th. And if you look at the top 10 of that race, it is literally the who's who in the Hall of Fame associated with Ironman. He went on to win so many more races. When you get to something like triathlon, he got as high, at Ironman level. He got all the way up to 6th place at Ironman Lake Placid. If you've never been to Lake Placid, it's anything but easy. Very, very difficult race course. I think you get kind of the gist of what I'm getting across here. It wasn't by accident he became number 1 in America on 3 rankings wise on 3 different occasions. His domination at all the distances from sprint all the way up to and include, maybe dominate Ironman isn't fair, but anytime that you're in the top 20 of an Ironman distance race anywhere in the world, you're a badass. As if that wasn't enough, Alec was also a very accomplished runner. Again, back here in Central Florida, we have a very prestigious series known as the Track Shack Grand Prix Series. Alec won that back in 96. In 93, he won the Jacksonville Marathon just against all the best runners in the country. He just went out and won it at a 2:25 pace. Just to put that in perspective, that's a 5:30 pace per mile. So I wanted to give a little bit of context. I hope you don't find that a little long-winded, but it's just so amazing. I consider this a privilege to have him on our episode today. These podcasts are there's so much joy giving these guys a chance to share their story. I don't spend any time asking them about a lot of race results. What I really was interested in is his journey. How did you dig out of literally, and he talks about the cold, think about the winters in Russia, going to swim practice, swimming twice a day, 20,000 meters a day. That's almost 15 miles of swimming per day, 6 days a week. Then he talks about how he added running and then got into cycling, and the rest is history. So I hope you'll enjoy this episode. Alec, I want to thank you personally for taking time to join us. As always, thank you for supporting the Coach Robb Podcast Network. The numbers continue to grow, and I can't thank you enough for that. If you could spread the word, I would greatly appreciate it. And without any further ado, Alec Rukosuev.
Welcome, everybody, to the Coach Robb Podcast Network. This show is Meet the Guest, and I am beyond thrilled to have one of my best friends in the world, Mr. Alec Rukosuev from Russia. Alec, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me, Rob.
It's my pleasure. And I don't know that it's fair that I say that you're from Russia, because I'm not going to ask you to tell your age. I just turned 56 last week, so I'm going to show my age. But I think you've been in the United States legitimately longer than you lived in Russia. Am I correct or incorrect in that assumption?
So I was almost 24 when I left Russia. So now I'm 57.
Okay.
Mass. So 24 years there and 32 years here.
That's unbelievable. And just for the background, for the people who may not have had a chance, anybody who's listening and watching this, if you're listening to us on a podcast network, I would encourage you to go to YouTube. You can put a face with the name. We have a bunch of B-roll during this conversation here today. And you guys heard in my intro all of Alec's credentials. Obviously, very, 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 very accomplished. And Alec, I was trying to pronounce, what part of Russia were you born in?
Oh, I was born, believe it or not, in a extremely small town. It's called Minusinsk. Then um, I'll go a little bit. I might explain. So in Russia, when you finish in Soviet Union, when you finish college, uh, you will be sent off to work somewhere. They will send you, and you have to work off, I don't know, 2 or 3 years before you can choose where you wanted to work. So my both parents, and my dad actually had 2 college degrees. He was a very smart man. They both been signed off to this small town. It's almost like a village. I only remember like one street. It's called Minusinsk. It's in a region of Krasnoyarsk. Then I moved to when I was like 10 or 9, I don't remember, 8. We moved to Krasnoyarsk, and maybe 8, and then I start swimming. And one of the reasons we moved, it was no swimming pools in Minusinsk, and my parents really want me to swim and do gymnastics too. So I was doing gymnastics and swimming same time, and I was fortunate enough. Our coach in gymnastics was missing a lot of practices, so he missed like second or third practice. Like I got home and my parents like, how would practice go? I said I show up, he was not there. They're like, okay, you're done with just gonna swim. So, and growing up, I did swimming every single day. And then on top of that, I tried to do some other sports too. I play soccer, little bit ping pong, little bit volleyball, little bit everything. So, and then at age 12, not too far after we moved to Krasnoyarsk, my parents got divorced. Me and mom and my brother, we moved to Omsk in Siberia. And then I started swimming a little bit even more seriously. So I went to my first swim meet there. I got like, I don't know, maybe 50s. And all these kids, it's kind of a funny story because all these kids beating me, and I'm like, I was very good in Krasnoyarsk. I was like, what's going on? So they have like two specialized classes, 30 kids in one school and 30 kids in another school. They doing like swim in the morning, school, study homework, swim again as a 10, 11 years olds, and then go home like at 7 p.m. So I was like, I just got like crashed. And I was like, what's going on? So, and it was like, I'm pretty loyal guy. So I was like, I don't want to switch from my coach, but I was like telling my mom, I was like, probably should be in that program. So once again, I got lucky. My current coach was running a small club, and we had like 10, 12 kids. And he had a small meeting. He goes, I'm going to switch. I'm going to go to track and field. Any of you guys who want to be runners? And everybody goes, and I was like, see ya. I was like, I don't want to be running. So I went into next day, I went to that program. And I said, can I? And it's funny, to test me for the program, they not just ask me to swim. They asked me to do pull-ups. And I was wearing the Russian snow boots. I did like 12 pull-ups or something. And they asked me like my flexibility drills. And then they put me in the water. I swam, and they're like, okay, I think you can start tomorrow. So when I started, I was like 30s in the class. I was like last. And in 4 years out of, I was already second in the country. So I was like,
and when you say the country, you're talking the entire Providence of Russia, Soviet Union. Okay, just want to clarify.
I got, as a 16, I was 12 when I went to the program. And then 3 years, I switched coaches again by accident too, because my current coaches, they went like 2 weeks for winter vacation. And my future coach at that time, she was from Ukraine, Ludmila Lebit. She now coaches in Canada.
Okay.
And I talk to her on a regular basis. So she ran 1 week of training with us. And I was like, this is so intense. I want to be part of that. So when they came back, I asked to be in her group. So, and it was not that easy, like, your coach losing an athlete. And so anyway, I switched, and I was in, I'll give you an example. I, at the mile, 1,500 meters at that time, I was around, in the summer was 1750. Then I didn't swim in the winter anything when I switched. It was maybe November I switched. So December I already went like 1730, and by August 1st I went 1620 on a mile, and I got second junior at nationals, and 403 I went 411. So I think I got fourth. And I always tell my kids on the swim team, back then we have regular speedos, briefs. You cannot buy speedos. It's like my mom made my speedo. I'm sure it wasn't that fast.
Mm-hmm.
So, and basically I was like, swimming. Went to military, swam for military for 2 years, and I realized I swam with Olympians in the Olympic training center for military. It was insane good.
How old were you when you were military at this point, Alex?
I was 19 to 21.
Okay.
So in the city of Kuybyshev, now it's Samara, they had this insane facility. It was 250-meter pools, fitness, gyms. Then they had a cafeteria, and they have a beautiful dorms. It was very nice. It was like a mini hotel. And we had guys who never left dorms for like 2 months. They're trying to like set a record, like they think it's cool, like a space ship. They like, so I stayed there for 1 year on and off. And as I finished military, I went back to Omsk, and I was swimming like 1 more year. And I accidentally ran into triathlons. So I came from Russian nationals, not Soviet Union. I didn't make it Soviet Union nationals. You have to make it after Russian nationals. You have to make it. So I got home from Russian nationals, and I see ad on TV, keep running the ad. I'm like, first Omsk Siberian triathlon, come and join us, blah, blah, blah.
What were the distances of the tri?
So I want to say 1K.
Okay.
Because it was swim across the river. It was funny. And this is crazy story. And then there was 40K in the bike, but it consisted 16 laps in a small alley. So 16 laps, and then there was 10K run. So
for those of you that are listening, and again, in the triathlon world, that's called the Olympic distance. That's not an easy distance. So for this to be your first, just to put it in context, most people start with a sprint race, quarter-mile swim, 10 to 12-mile bike, 3-mile run. Alec's first triathlon, an Olympic distance. When you guys literally, no pun intended, when you watch the Olympics and you see triathlon, that would be the complete distance. And how old were you doing your first try at this point? 19, 20?
80. I was 21.
Okay. All right.
So the crazy part was this. I was like, this is a Russian thing. We so used to government provide everything.
Mm.
So used to, like, I give you example, when athletes come here from Russia or Kazakhstan or to train with me, swimmers, which is I used to receive a lot until like current situation.
You talking about here in Orlando currently?
In Orlando, yeah.
Okay, sorry.
They always email me and they ask me like, oh, what we gonna get? I was like, well, you're gonna get nothing. You're gonna pay this much per month and you're gonna get absolutely nothing, you know? So, because I was like, I don't have a bike. I just show up to race site. Okay, I think about it. I don't even know how at least I was smart enough to bring shoes for running. I mean, like, going to the race, we're talking about cold Turkey. I haven't bike. I haven't run. Well, I was, my old coaches came before my Ukrainian Lebed coach. They believe in running. So I always ran. So very few people know that I was such a crazy, like, I give you example. My biggest swimming week was, I did a training camp, 137K swimming.
In 1 week.
In 1 week. It's averaging like 22K per day.
And just so everybody puts that in context, 20,000 per day is a little over 14.3 miles per day of swimming.
6 days, and then 6 days, and then Sunday we did one. So it was basically like 10 in the morning, 8 at night, 8 in the morning, 10 at night, and then I did Sunday workout. I remember for the rest of my life, I swam 8K by myself, and we had a couple of girls in the camp, and I thought like, I'm done. And she goes, oh, so you don't feel like life is a bunch of strawberries? Gonna go 5K on time. After I already swam this 128,000 week.
Oh, it's at the end of the week.
At the end of the week on Saturday. So then I swam 5K. But what I'm going with is, even I was doing all this, I would go and run 2 hours.
How many days a week?
And then cross country guys or track and field guys in that camp in Ukraine, they're like, hey, how far you ran today? I said, I went from here to middle of city and back. They're like, no, you didn't. I said, yeah, I did. It was like 30K or something, almost 20 miles. They're like, no, you didn't. Yeah, I said, yeah, I did. So I was always running. So fast forward to the first triathlon, I show up to a race. They had like 10, 12 bikes to borrow. And this is fat tire in Russia.
For 40K on a fat tire.
40K. So,
and for those of you who don't know, that's right at 24.9 miles for a conversion.
So anyway, I got this bike. I started the race. I swam. I just came out of nationals, so I'm in a good swimming shape. So I just swam. I don't know, maybe beat second guy by like 2 or 3 minutes, and then I rested with like maybe by 6 minutes out of swim. So I start biking, and I'm like not going anywhere. I did one loop. And I see this older guy, maybe in the 40s, maybe late 30s, whatever.
Yep.
Staying on the side with a sports, back then, race bike. And I'm like, hey, dude, can I borrow? He's like, next loop I'm going racing. I just give him my bike. I jump on his bike. And I
not fitted, nothing, just borrowed some dude's bike.
Borrowed. And he was like shorter than me, but I was like, oh, finally I'm going. So I'm going on this bike. This guy's flying by me. Guys are flying because we had some really serious cyclists. Our city was famous for producing cyclists like Olympians, and I ran into that later. So it helped me because I was coached by Olympian, So On the bike, the guy goes a lap like 14. He goes, hey, I need to go. Can I get my bike back? I said, one more lap. So on the next lap, I give him bike, and I finished bike. I was like 6 minutes down. But I was still like second or third. And then one of the guys says like, the guy up front, but he's like barely running. It was a cyclist and with big quads. So I caught him, I don't know, by like 7K or something. I caught him pretty quick, 7K. So anyway, I won that race, my first race called Turkey. And so that was maybe 80, that was 1988. So following year, I'm still swimming. I'm swimming, and I'm keeping in mind in the summer I might do triathlon. Okay? So I would go, it was kind of funny. I would go in our gym at the pool. We had it downstairs and I would do literally 10 squats. I had this tiny, like real small legs. I would do 10 squats and go, that's good enough. And I come out. And so same routine. I went, meanwhile, my wife, we got married 88, and it's 1 year later. She's like fully trained, and she's at national swimming. And I came home, I think June. And I went to, because I was in college, and the college called Institute of Physical Culture, basically where they produce coaches, future coaches. So you have to study all different sports and periodization. And so I went to cycling, and I said, can I borrow bike from you guys? And there's this guy, Olympic champion from 1968, 20 years prior, sitting looking at me. He goes, I'll let you borrow bike if you switch from swimming to cycling. And I was like, can I just borrow it? Go race a couple of races, see what happens. He's like, okay. So I borrow and never switch. I don't think it would be a bad idea. I would love to if I actually, because it was very serious program. Very, very good program. Because they produce professional cyclists, these
Sure.
guys.
Sure.
So he just looked at me and goes, anyway. So I trained like 1 month, and I went to this race in Estonia. It was like national race. And Lera traveled with me, and we won like long with flew to Moscow, took a train. And so same story. I was out of water. I mean, meanwhile, I was a little bit trained, I trained like 3 or 4 weeks, So I was first out of water. I lead by like 1.5 minutes. Somebody not too long ago posted the results. I went like 17 minutes for a mile. And then I bike. Horrible. I did 1:12. But I biked with running shoes. I remember that. And then I ran 10K like 42 minutes. So I ended up like 17 in the race. So I was like 17. We traveled over Estonia, went to Thailand with friends. Just, I get back a couple days later to Omsk, and I go to pool following Monday, I think. And the front desk grandma goes, listen, where you been? This guy been calling from Moscow, from Olympic Committee. Here's the number. They want you to call them. So I call, and there was a guy, head coach of national triathlon team. They try and put together. And I was 17. So he goes, would you like to be on national team? So I was like, okay, when I need to be there? He's like, on the 26th. So on 26, and I'm going, today's 21st in my mind. On 20, what, I need to be there 5 days. I didn't ask. I just show up on 26, right? And it was July. I show up at sport committee. It looks like American Pentagon building, Russian sport committee, Soviet Union. And I called him from downstairs. I said, I'm here. He's like, what do you mean you're here? I said, you're 26. It's 26. I'm here. So he comes downstairs. He looks at me and he goes, you're going to make it. I can see it.
Love this.
So I remember he said that. It was like,
there's a ton that I want to unpack on what you just shared right there. And I want to thank the listeners for sticking into this, because you can see Alec's authenticity in all of this. And we talk about this on the show over and over and over and over again. And I'm going to pick your brain a lot on this, Alec, because, and if I overstep my bounds, and as I say to all of our guests, please put me in my place. But I want to go back. You kind of threw out their suburbia, you know, and their Serbia, excuse me. And being an American, we think of Russia, we think the Soviet Union, we think Drago against Rocky. And I'll never forget, and I want to set the context on how I met Alec, which I don't want to get ahead of Alec's story here, but we're going to talk about it in just a few minutes. But the very first time I met Alec, he had just come to the United States. I remember, Alec, you may not be aware of this, but I actually volunteered at one of the aid stations right underneath the monorail there at World Championships. I remember Greg Welch winning it. And yeah, you were there because I remember seeing you, and then we know where you ended up. I don't know if it's permissible to talk about where you hung out there for a while, but we'll get there. But here's the cool part, guys. When I met Alec, Alec couldn't speak a single word of Russian. And
English, Russian, that was okay.
Excuse me. I said that backwards. Thank you. So Alec and I get a chance to meet through a mutual friend, and there was a swim program that we went to, and Alex spoke no English. I'd show up in my car. He'd get in my car. We'd put in Depeche Mode. We would drive. He'd look at me and shake his head, sing a little bit. We'd get done with swim practice, ironically at Katy Way, where Alec and his wife, Lera, they run their own swim program there. We'd go to a restaurant called The Mill, and we'd get a meal together. And Alec couldn't speak English. We'd have 25 Patrick Davis was there, all that normal group. And then I'd drive Alec back home, and he was living at a particular house, and we're going to get into that story because I think, Alec, it's important. So the reason why I wanted to share that, the context, think about the mental adversity. You've got an individual who has left Russia and is in the United States. He's allowing me, who I can't speak any English with him, I can't, any Russian, I can't dialogue with him whatsoever. We kind of talk through sign language and we gesture some things. We go, we swim, we get out of the pool, we go get breakfast together, we drive home. We did that 5 days in a row every week. And then we'd go out to Windermere. We'd all ride at Windermere. The story goes on, and we may even have to do a separate show on that one. But if we come back, you mentioned the idea that, you know, you were very young and then you kind of frog hopped into being into the military there. What was it? And I don't want to sensationalize it, but I do have to state it from the way that my brain and the perception of it is. What was the food rationing like there? Because if I'm not mistaken, and again, if I take it out of context, please straighten my story up. Didn't you tell me that with you being ranked number one in Russia, because you were eventually you made yourself to the number one Russian, was it 1,500 meters, right? As was Lera?
No.
Okay.
When I was swimming my best, I was like top 8 on a mile in Russia, but I was like in Soviet Union. But I won Russian 400 free, but it was the only Russian Federation. You know,
okay.
That's a different. You know.
Okay. What was the food situation like? Because I remember you telling me it was an incredible experience for you, because if you didn't perform well, you didn't get food.
Well, if you,
I think you said it was
Russians have a system which is very hard for me explain to Americans, because here, you know, I have kids come in, they paying me money to coach them.
Yeah.
So there is very different. So when I joined that group, when I did my pull-ups, right?
Mm-hmm.
So right away, I got on the sport assistant program. So every month, government provide me with food. So for 30 kids, but they they would look every 3 months and see if they can cut out 2 or 3, 4 kids. Okay.
And this is exactly what I want the listeners to understand.
So it gets
Unbelievable.
it gets way sophisticated than that. So you have 30 kids, young kids getting food, and they have pockets, this school, let's say 90 kids in one city, or maybe 60. Then as you get older, they put us together in, it's called, it was like a national training center, but it was in Siberia. We had like maybe 7 of them in different regions.
And how many kids, how many athletes in each one?
They would be 30 kids, but this would be 30 kids from whole region, from Siberia and Far East. So you're covering, so you have to be top, and then to able to maintain, you have to be at least top 16 in Russia to able to still be on that program. So you have to be, now
to be on that program, Alec, was it you had to hit a certain criteria, or was it a subjective evaluation by the coaching committee?
It just,
how did you maintain your eligibility on actual times?
By placing, if you place, we have like, here we have cuts. In swimming, we have cuts, similar maybe to motocross, you qualify for certain races. So like in swimming, we have future, junior nationals, and then nationals and Olympic trials. So to comparison to US, you had to have at least junior national times to be able to maintain being that program. And
is that competition times or times in practice?
Only competition times.
Okay.
And on top of that, they still can cut you.
Okay. And who has the discretion to cut you? The coach?
Because I was vocal, and the head coach was complete asshole.
Yep.
I spoke against him, and I still dislike him because they making a god out of him. He's a really bad person. US, he would be in jail, but so I spoke against him, and he cut me. So my last year swimming, I was swimming for free, so nobody was paying me. I was just swimming, and I felt like left out.
What age were you?
That was like, I was probably 20, and if they cut you, you cannot go to swimmers. If you go to swimmers, you have to pay yourself, where before it's the government paying for it. So,
and I just think it's so important for our
get
listeners.
back to that 26.
Yes.
When I show up at sport committee.
Okay.
So I show up, and he said, "Hey, buddy, you're going to make it. We have a problem." I said August 26, not July 26. I show up 1 month early. And he goes, "I can put you here. You can stay here." And I said, "No, I'll go back." And I went to, Lera was traveling with her mom to Kursk to go to village. I went to village, not knowing where I'm going. And it's like a movie. I accidentally ran into Lera in a train station after she took a train, and her train was late by 24 hours. So I ended up, for 1 month, I went to village, and I was running every single day, 1 hour, 2 hours. And it was all the grandmas in the village. They're like, "Look at him again, he's running." And they would tell me like, "Dude, do something. Go work on the fields. Stop running." So I was running there, and I would swim in a small lake, maybe just 2,000, whatever. And then I get back. This is very important because I was running, just building aerobic, and I assume like, hey, if we swim for 3 hours, why we cannot run for 3 hours? My first year, I did couple 3-hour runs. I was like,
and put it in context, because we have a lot of endurance athletes that watch this. What kind of pace are you running for 3 hours? Just kind of general terms.
I would not be surprised if maybe like 7 minutes or faster per mile.
So start doing the math backwards, 8.5, 9 miles per hour.
I would swear I probably ran marathon in 3 hours. And I was like, back then there was no Garmin's or anything, but I always said we always knew what pace we run in. We were running around Wakawa, you knew pace we run in. And
yep.
So anyway, I show up to National Training Center like 1 month later, and they did the test. And I ran my first 10K on the track, not in the triathlon, and I did 34:40.
What pace? Just for the sake of the listeners, what pace is that? That's got to be
34. It's way under 6 minutes.
Yeah, so like
6 minutes, 36 minutes. It's so like 5:40 pace
on the track for 10K.
Yeah.
So just so everybody puts that in perspective, that's over 24 laps around a quarter-mile track. And so to hold that pace is insane.
So and then so I went and we start training, did biking, running, blah blah blah, and then so my daughter needs help. I'll help you after we're done. So 1 month later, we went to another training camp, and it was in south of, I don't know, it's Russia or Georgia, I think close to Georgia. It was, I forget the name. So, and it was another Olympic training center. So anyway, so they decided to do they decided to do a test. They said, we're going to swim a mile, and we're going to run the 10K on the track next day. And whoever does like slow, if you under 52:30, they said, you're going to stay on the team. If not, we're going to cut you.
Okay.
So you can do the math. All right.
Yep.
So anyway, but he goes, but Alec is so new to triathlon, we're going to give one exception. Alec is staying on. So you have 5 spots to compete.
Out of how many total athletes are fighting for those 5 spots? Okay. 12. So 50% is going to get dismissed.
Yep. And they did cut it. So this is my second 10K with a month, right? So I remember the times I swam. I basically haven't swam all summer. I was swimming very little, right? So I swam 17:20. My best time at that time was like 16 minutes, 16:04. Oh. So I swam 17:20. And then next day we ran 10K. I dropped 1 minute from months. So I went like 17:17 or 17:16 because I ran 33:40. So that's 1 minute improvement. And I did a 50 total, 56 or something.
Yep.
And I remember I was exempt.
Mm-hmm.
And none of my other guys under 52:30, none of them. Only one who made it.
So how did they choose the 5 they were getting?
So the fastest one, whoever was 5 guys, they end up 6. I think they kept it more, maybe 8 instead of 6. So we end up training all year. So first year, remember that race in Estonia, I did 2 hours, 12 minutes. Yep. So in August, I start training with national team. Fast forward 9 months forward, we did a race in Latvia, nationals.
Okay.
I got second now instead of 17. It was a swim in the pool, 50 meter. Mass swim, you had 5 guys on the lane. 50 meter in the pool. I did once again around 17:20.
Are you doing the full 1500 with all 5 guys in the lane?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah. And I tell the other guy, just try to stay with those 50, get on my feet. And
did they at least do rotation so that you didn't run into each other?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank goodness.
There's a crazy picture. I have a picture, but that triathlon where everybody just line up. You see like 50 guys ready to go. Well, anyway, I got second, and think about time. So my first one in Latvia was 2 hours, 12 minutes.
Yeah.
Estonia. This one I did in hour 54.
And that's with a pool swim.
Full swim. Yeah. Legit. Legit.
That's unbelievable.
So, and then, I was like, we start traveling as a team, start doing international races. I made a team because I was second. So I would always be second in our national races because one guy always catch me. And believe it or not, I just talked to him yesterday.
Oh, wow.
He would always catch me on the run. And, but the funny part, they're like, oh, Alec is a soft or, cyclist, and cycling wasn't my strongest, but I always point out now after watch all the races, I would be by myself out minute and a half ahead of everyone, right? These guys in the pack, riding together, or it was non-drafting, but they probably like draft, and I'm by myself, holding the ground, going somewhat big gears back then, trying right up front. I was like, now I look at them and say, no, guys, I was okay on the bike.
Yeah.
Just the ground, from behind. I wasn't great. I like 1 or 2 on 40K, maybe 1 or 1. In St. Anthony's, a bike 55, 56 minutes.
Yeah, I was just going to put it in perspective. We're going to talk about St. Anthony's here in a little bit.
Oh.
Now, it's something else to keep in mind too. You just zapped your legs. You're first out of the water. You're pulling all the wind by yourself. You zap your legs on the bike. I know you said the guy ran you down, but what kind of 10K times were you putting?
I was running. I look at the results. I was running 34, 40 around. Maybe sometimes 35, maybe, but I was getting there. I mean, my big change in running came when I came to Orlando.
Yes,
because I did very basic training. I basically made a goal to run 60 miles every week. It's at winter, and I ran a Winter Park 10K in 31:50.
Yep.
And then when I did St. Anthony's and when I got disqualified, I ran from like 11 or 12th place to first place.
Yep.
I do believe I ran 31:50 that year. And then later on, when I won again or got second, I was running 32:30 on that course.
But it's really important for the endurance market. This is no carbon shoes. This is none of the technology that we have today. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. I do want to go back to, and again, if you're not comfortable talking about this, because I don't want to overstep my bounds here. Walk us through the mentality. You're such a young man. Obviously, I mean, being from Florida, I can't even begin to imagine Russian winters. You talk about swimming during the winter and stuff like that. We talk about, you've been quoted in a couple of publications. Whenever the kids start whining that things are difficult, you politely remind them that you left Russia with $19 in your pocket. You came to the United States. How much?
36.
$36 in your pocket, not able to speak English. Where do you said your parents obviously genetically very smart. Were your mom and dad genetically athletically gifted as well? Why were they so motivated that you were in gymnastics and swimming at such a young age?
So my both parents into sports because like my dad and my mom was gymnasts.
Okay.
Mom was doing a little bit cross country ski as a like cross train.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody in Russia obsessed with chess. My dad was extremely obsessed with chess. So as growing up, I was playing chess for 5 hours a day, too, which is I think really helps with, I don't know, like should be mandatory, one of the subjects in schools, I think. But anyway.
No. Stay on that thread of thought, because I think that's so powerful. Why do you think chess should be part of somebody's everyday routine? Like from your perspective, because you've already gone through the entire quagmire of becoming one of the best athletes in the world, which we're going to get to some of your credentials. But when you look, why do you feel that way?
Very simple. Like I give you example, just analogy and playing the whole game. And I go back in, like I get obsessed and do playing on computer, like let's say last year, but it just helps you develop your brain, so to speak, in analysis and things like for swimming, I borrow things from track and field, and one way or back from swimming into track and field. Like, speaking of credentials, I came to Orlando 92 in January.
Was that for Worlds?
No, Worlds was 1990.
Okay.
That's when I came already with Lera, and we, stayed with Jeff. And
yep.
So think about this. In 1902, 9 months later, 10 months later, 92 December, I ran my first marathon, once again, cold turkey, without much training.
Is that when you won Disney?
I ran 225 in Gainesville.
Okay. And you won
Jacksonville.
Jacksonville. Okay.
That's when I won a marathon at Jackson. And I ran 225. And then 12 months later, I ran 221. And back then, it was the Olympic qualifying time.
Mm-hmm.
That's my Hall of Fame right here. I have Olympic qualifying time standard, all standards in swimming and marathon. Very few or none in the world have that.
And everybody's all enamored that Taylor Knibb just qualified for both cycling and triathlon, and you've already done it.
Well, no, she qualified for Olympics. I'm talking about for Olympic trials.
No, I'm just giving you a hard time.
Swimmers cannot run, runners cannot swim.
Amen.
I had that as a, for people qualified for Olympic trials before, maybe 800-meter run, but not in marathon.
Go back to the mental mindset. You mentioned chess is something that gives you the opportunity to kind of think bigger picture. Where would you, because you were kind enough to share with us kind of, you're this young man, you've got parents, obviously intelligence and athleticism is very, very important. You're getting shifted around with a couple different clubs here or there for a multitude of reasons, right? Whether it's hap or circumstance, either way, you ended up where you ended up. I think a lot of people are not aware of the fact that Lera, your bride, was also one of the top, if not the top female in Russia, was she not?
She was better than me. She was a national champion in swimming and backstroke, 100 back, and she was on national team. So I married up, as you know.
But where in your psyche, is there an age, is there something collectively that has made you and kind of pushed the Russian Drago kind of parody out of the equation? I've been privileged enough to be friends with you for so many decades. But one of the things that everybody talks about when they're in your presence is that mental toughness, that mental edge. Where and how did that get cultivated? Because based on what you've shared with us today, it sounds like it was very, very early. Where do you remember it becoming like an asset?
Well, I'd give example from early age.
What age? How early?
It's got to be 12.
Wow. Okay.
I'm telling you, it got to be 12.
Yeah.
I started thinking, what else I can do to get better
in life, or just in swimming, or
at that point, swimming.
Were you good in school while you were swimming?
I was not good at swimming, but I was extremely obsessed with sports. I was studying cycling. I love reading. Even I never rode a bike back then. I was reading stuff and about different. I read it way back, which has helped me later. I read a book about Peter Snell. I was a swimmer. I wrote a book about a guy who broke. I think he's the second guy Rogers, who broke a mile 4 minutes.
Yep.
Peter Snell was a world champion back then, and Peter Snell, to able to run 1 mile every week, did a 2 hour run. So, and when he declined, he started going slow. It happened to me too. Start going slow. He was not doing long run. I was just fascinated with it. And then when I was like maybe 15, 16, I was swimming against extremely talented kids. And I won't say I was talented. Right now, believe it or not, I kind of see it, which just bothers me. If I started biking with somebody and on beginning, I'm very average. And then if I bike longer, I can hammer. If I bike for 2 months, like right now I'm in decent shape. I bike this morning 50 miles by myself, averaging almost 21 miles. But people understand, like, a word being abused in the United States is talent. Like, I don't see myself as a talented. I see myself as a developed skill. It's like, if you put hours and hours in, you will develop. It's like, yes, I think now I kind of recognize it's like, if I swim a little bit more, I get in a crazy good shape. If I run, I can run under 20 minutes almost any given day for 5K right now, and I'm not running much, So, but it's not because what I've been doing now, it's what I've been doing all my life. So, and then, at age 15, 16, I maybe 17, I add Sunday run to my swimming. So every Sunday I would go run hour and a half.
Now, this is after 6 days of swimming.
After 6 days of doubles swimming.
Yep. Now, when he says doubles, remember, guys, we're talking roughly 10,000 meters in the morning, 10,000 meters at night, to the tune of over
around 90K swimming per week, back then.
Yeah, 90K. Do the math.
Not with my crazy Ukrainian coach.
But you start thinking about that, though. You're talking over 100 miles of swimming in a week. And then you're running on Sunday on top of that.
I was running on Sunday. So it was like, that's when I started doing my cold turkey triathlons. I'm like probably best candidate for it because I developed pretty quick.
What do you think it is in your psyche that makes you very inquisitive? Obviously, you long for knowledge, the ability to apply it. For the listeners who may be developing a young athlete, and if you guys paid attention to what I said in the intro, Alec and Lera have started their own swim program. It's a very successful program here in Central Florida. I don't know how many athletes you currently have in your program. I don't know how many athletes come.
About 50 kids.
And then how many years have you and Lera been doing it? So how many total kids do you think have come through your program?
Our own team, almost 20 years, 19 years.
19 years. How, with you, because you and Lera have been blessed with.
I want to give you example.
Okay.
I want to give you example. And that's, I think, what helped me in triathlons. And I catch up myself doing that when I not on the swim, but on the run and the bike, right? I catch myself doing this all the time. So in my head, I'm going to go, okay, I got to schedule 1 hour run today. Okay. And a lot of times I end up running hour 10 or hour 15, extra 2 miles. Because that comes from my old experience saying these 2 extra miles going to put me over somebody else. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Now I cannot compete with the professional amateurs now. I call my friends professional amateurs. Because they train all day long. I'm 22 pounds over my race weight, and I'm never gonna be in the race weight again. But that's what helped me to kind of develop as an athlete. I would always think in what extra step I can do it. Same on the bike. I go bike, okay, I'm going to go bike 40 miles. or 50. I was like, let's get extra 5 to make it, 90K. 90K sounds much better.
Yep.
And stuff like that. So constantly looking at how to like come up with extra step to be better. And I think that's what helped me. Or I was doing workouts, in the 90s. Now everybody's doing that or more.
Mm-hmm.
Better quality.
Yeah.
Sam Long is doing crazy bike workouts, but, back in the day, only very few people, I don't know, Jeff Devlin, Jorgen Zach was doing that.
Sure.
So, but I was like, I was trying to figure out in my mind, how I can be a true professional, what I do.
But I'm also going to throw a curveball in there because I was fortunate enough to be around you from when you first came over. And one of the things that always stands out at me was I always called you the bookend. I remember when I was working, for those of you on the moto side, when I was doing statistical analysis for Gooding Supermarket, our CEO was AC's grandfather. So just to put it in perspective, I'd be coming up Wekiva Springs Road and you'd be running back from the pool. You'd run from the house, you ran to the pool, you swam, you're running back to the house, and I'd honk and wave as we go by. My point is you are one of the hardest workers, but you're also one of the most dedicated people associated to recovery. I remember that. I'd call you, I wouldn't get an answer, I'm taking a nap. I'd call you, you're sleeping in, or maybe you went to Katie Way in the morning, you came home, you went right back to bed. Or that's one of the things I always remember was your emphasis on sleep, soft tissue maintenance, recovery. You worked hard, but you rested as hard. Mm-hmm. I always try to say,
I gotta tell you this, I was, professional for 12, 13 years, maybe 14. And I treated every day as if you remember at 7, we always roll out like 7:15, but I had to roll out at 7:15 every single day on the bike. And then we would be short swim after that, and then track or running in the afternoon. Mm-hmm. But I would do every single day, 3 workouts per day, and treat it as like I never miss workout. I would never miss workout unless it's a recovery day.
Right.
And recovery could be, Friday, I would do 4K swim, short track workouts, that's the recovery. And maybe hour and a half bike rides, that was the recovery. But I don't remember ever missing it, unless, something.
Yeah, I mean, unless you were sick or injured.
Wow.
And just to put it in the scope, you guys can see this picture that's behind me here. You probably saw it in the intro. This is Alec on the cover of Triathlete magazine. So for you that are in the moto world, this is like being on the cover of Racer X. And you've got to remember, and Alec, we could talk about this, it's nothing that we're shying away from, but when Alec came over, he was on a dinosaur of a bicycle. It weighed as much as he was. And within a short period of time, he was sponsored by Kestrel, which was the company to be sponsored by. He had Reebok, which nobody was sponsored by Reebok at the time. He had Oakley, he had Zip Wheels, he had Power Bar. You look at that laundry list of sponsorship coming from nothing, literally coming over with just a dinosaur of a bike. To be able to see him get to the cover of this magazine, to see him go, for those of you that are familiar with the state of Florida, we've referenced the race St. Anthony's. It's right there at the St. Pete Pier. That was the season opener. That was the be all end all. What was the prize purse there? 40,000 for men and women or something. It was the biggest prize purse of the year early in the season. Alec, credible, put a stamp on that race over and over and over again. He's gone to Hawaii Ironman. How many total times were you at Hawaii?
Oh, 6 times, but they only complete successfully twice.
Yeah, but how many times did you lead out of the water? It was you.
All 6 times I was at least second out of water.
And the only person that beat you was who, Mackel?
No, it was
Dietrich
or Bruce Gennari 1 year.
Okay.
But I felt, in my honest opinion, I don't want to upset anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I felt unnecessary to beat Dietrich out of water if a guy was leading for all 4K. I didn't want to out sprint him on the end. That would be that was a cheap shot.
Yep.
So he was leading the all 4K. I just, all I know, I did a race in Germany. It was time trial race. And it was 1K swim in the pool.
Okay.
And then the time trial bike, I crashed. And I still got second in that race. I crashed. And I severe crashed. Because it was raining and on a turn, I crashed. And I got second in that race. But on my 1,000 swim, I beat him by like 20 seconds.
That's crazy.
And I was like, how in the world he actually swims as fast in Hawaii? I did not know. So,
yep.
So I was a nice guy in Hawaii. I really didn't want to, sprint the brains out. It didn't make a sense.
Well, that's just respect. And that's something that's ingrained into you and Lera both. You see it on the deck when you guys are coaching. That just screams to the credibility of who you are as a person. I would encourage anybody who's listening to this, if you want something fun, what year was it, Alec, that the Ironman coverage was out there? You were with Paul and Frazier and Paul Huddle and Rock Fry and all those guys, and you guys were sitting outdoors eating, and they were doing like a special interest story.
Well,
what year was that?
Well, maybe 94, maybe it was 94, maybe a year after I did 93.
Everybody sitting around that table are the salt of the earth people. Rock Fry still involved with Ironman to this day. Paul Huddle, I still have the utmost respect for him. Paul and Frazier, one of the best females ever. I don't know, was Welchie with you guys there in that film? I don't remember.
I still talk with Welchie here and there.
Yeah, Welchie's a great guy. Another one he's from Australia. But my point being is, and that's why, Alec, I want to thank you, giving insight for somebody who's had to come through so much adversity. When you look at the idea, like when I first met Alec, as I alluded to earlier, Alec didn't speak a word of English. Like I'm not exaggerating one bit. I would put Depeche Mode in. That's all we did. That's all we listened to, there and back. And then to see Alec and Lera, Lera, Alec, do you have enough time to share the story on how you and Lera got here?
Sure. I have like 10 more minutes.
Yes, sir.
Go to number 2.
Yep.
So we went to Worlds, and we went to World Championships in Orlando, 1990. So I got back to Omsk, and I told Lera, I remember I said we're gonna move. I said we're moving next year. So I didn't know where, but I said we're not gonna stay here. So I had like 3 plans, believe it or not.
Okay.
I had 3 plans. I have a really, really good friend, Thomas Gustafsson in Sweden.
Okay.
He was trying to recruit me to come because he was a triathlete. He was a professional triathlete. And he also was really well off because his dad owned I believe, toy company. So he was well off. When we went there, he supported Russian team, gave us a lot of stuff, and he was we still friends until now. So he was trying to recruit me, and he's like, how about you come to Sweden and with my little English, come to Sweden, and I was considering that. So then a following year, 91, I went to Worlds in Australia, and I almost stayed there. I went to immigration, and they stamped my passport. They said absolutely no problem, which is I was surprised.
Were you going to be there as an athlete? Is that why they gave you the approval?
No, they just I said I want to basically apply for political asylum. I want to leave, and they're like, okay, we have a procedure. I said, how long gonna take for my wife to come out of Russia? They say approximately 6 months. So I thought if that's the case, my wife will never come out of Russia, Soviet Union back then.
Mm-hmm.
So Australia became, so I supposed to not come back from Australia, but I came back and I started working on how to get to US. Because I talked to Jeff and Kim in Australia saying, here's my plans. They didn't work out with Australia. They said, okay, how you come out to US, and we'll see if we can make it. So 2 months, I nicely, I wouldn't say bribe, but I gave some presents to my management on national team. I was a team manager. So he helped me. I said, I'm going to go race in the United States, 2-3 races, and I'm going to come back. So
You are, or you're not coming back?
I told him I'm coming back. I'm just going to race a couple races. I'm working.
Okay. Yeah.
And I was nice enough. I went to Australia. I bought him presents. Maybe his sort of process was, guy's going to go to US, going to bring me more presents. Why not? So he got me US visa and Lera too. And we basically went, back then, computers not that sophisticated. We went different exits in Moscow airport. We just never together, so the people don't see couple leaving. So, and then when we came to US, we already together. And, they asked when you leaving? It was like, in 3 months. And that's when we made it to Orlando with $36 left.
Mm.
So, and the funny part was, remember that head coach, we left out of Olympic Training Center because my head coach, who was inviting me to be on the team, he arrived for breakfast from Moscow, and he goes, "Where's Alec?" And then people laughing, and they're like, "Oh, he's flying to US right now." And as they said, he almost had a heart attack.
So he knew what was going on.
Yeah, he's like, "Oh no." So that was January 16, 1992. I had never been back to Russia in 32 years.
Is that on good terms or bad terms? Like if you were to go back to Russia, would you get in trouble?
Back in the day, possibly, but now, probably most likely not, but with everything going on right now, between Russia and Ukraine and stuff, I don't have a desire to go.
Sure.
I see my friends come here, and some of my friends we once in a while meet in Europe. So it's, I stay in touch. I call my Russian friends almost daily.
Yep. Well, I just think it's amazing. And that's why I wanted to make sure that our listeners, because each show that we do, our last show, we had Connor Fields and, as the first gentleman to make 3 rounds of the Olympics in the sport of BMX. Of course, we've got a mutual friend, Hunter Kemper, who I hope to get on the show here. He's made 3 rounds of the Olympics. And I just think people can see online your athleticism, but it's like you taking the time to share what you're dealing with as a young athlete, having to serve your country because it's a prerequisite, and then going through all the, epiphanies that you did on what you enjoyed and what you studied, and then just the natural progression and the fact that you'd be willing to do 2 miles more because you knew nobody else would be willing to do it. And I hope the listeners can take away just how important that mental edge is. For those of you that have followed me for any period of time, you guys know I've always believed that hard work can outwork talent all day long. I've got, 261 amateur national titles to our name. We have 4 AMA #1 plates in our motocross market. And most of those are not with the guys that had the greatest amount of talent. And as you guys have heard me say over and over again, the person who wins on race day isn't always the fastest. It's the person that minimizes mistakes. And you guys know it's attention to detail. And Alec, I want to thank you because you've just exemplified what mental toughness is, what loyal is. I have to ask, how many years have you and Lera been married now?
So we married in 88, 36 years.
And you've got 3 beautiful daughters. Are they swimming? Are they involved in swimming?
My oldest daughter swam for Alabama, and then she swam for East Carolina.
Okay.
She had a full scholarship at East Carolina. My 18 years old, she's swimming. She's not the obsessive with swimming as she's more artsy, so to speak. But she's gonna swim in college, so we're kind of excited about that. And then my little one, she's gonna be 12 soon. So she's playing tennis full time.
Nice.
So
Well,
hopefully she's pretty good. She's 11 right now. She's moving up in a. I just sent you a picture from 95, I believe.
okay.
On your text is it was one of the nationals, U.S. nationals, and I ran Jeff Devlin, another guy down, and then I almost ran Greg Walden to. I ended up second, but only like 9 seconds behind Greg Walden.
That's so close.
Yeah.
Well, any pictures that you have, send my way. I'd love to get it in here. And Alec, again, I know you've got a tight schedule. I appreciate you working me in. Please give our love to Lera, and thanks for sharing your thoughts. We've got a couple other subjects that we'd like to talk about, so maybe in the near future we can have you come back if your schedule permits. But we definitely appreciate having.
I like the questions you sent it to me. I would be very interested to talk over, because you can look back and see what could be done different, and how that, because I think about that a lot, because because I coach athletes, in high-end athletes too, triathletes, and I 2 years ago I coached one of it. At that time he was top junior, US junior. He's upcoming pro. He's only 19. And things we can just discuss a lot of things. You know what I mean?
Yep. I look forward to it. And again, I appreciate you carving time out. I know you're extremely busy, but we'll definitely get you back at your convenience. And thanks again so much for doing the show. Take care.
No problem. Thank you.